Hey guys, what's going on? So today I have a progress update for you guys on the stripping of the 1995 Buick Regal. And guys, it's come a long way in just the day and a half that I've had to strip it. And so got the entire front suspension over here torn apart, got the control arm off. Obviously that's not going to the scrapyard, that's gonna stay with me. Got the strut, axle, all that out from this side tie rod, inner tie rod. You guys can see the crack in there. I think the subframe actually might be bent, guys. In the back here, you guys can see there's fresh rust there. I think the subframe actually might be bent. It's unfortunate, but I think it might be. I just can't tell for sure, but there was rust peeling off of it after I brought it back here and took the wheel off. I was able to peel some rust off of it. And looking at it, it almost looks like it's starting to go like this in the back, and this side's starting to come down, so it's kind of doing like a V shape. At least it looks like that. And that's exactly what happened to my last Regal too. Kind of interesting. Not sure why it's doing that. I'm not 100% sure it is 100% doing that. I would have to look at it before. Obviously that's impossible now, but this subframe I was very much wanting to keep, and that bend back there, that's no big deal, but the thing is that if it is bent at all, but the rust factor is kind of killing me right now. And also keeping this engine inside this car without having that subframe in there and the transmission as well is also going to be a headache. And I really don't need this subframe sitting around. Honestly, we have so much scrap laying around. I mean, just look at my poor trailer over there. Just a bunch of crap laying around, and I just don't need something like a subframe laying around, especially when I don't have anywhere inside to store it. So it's only going to get more rusty, guys. I know some Derby guys wanted me to keep it, either to frame or subframe swap into a newer Impala or something like that, or a whatever. But thing is that there's better subframes out there, and honestly I just don't really have a place for it at the moment, so yeah, or a use for it at the moment. So I'll just take all my suspension out of it, and I think we're gonna let this one go. If I ever wanted to subframe swap a car and I was that serious about putting a subframe into a car, I think I'd probably end up going down to Pennsylvania and finding alumina in the scrapyard and just tearing the subframe out of that. Anyway, so we got a lot of part of the motor here torn apart. Basically, the only thing that's left in here really is the power steering pump. I might take that off. I'm not 100% sure on that yet. And wiring, which I'm going to take a decent chunk of this harness off. One, for the copper, but also two, when you guys are extending wires on Derby cars, you got a lot of nice wires here that already came with another car. And these are all very good because you can also color coordinate them and get close to the gauge that they are, because there's so many different wires. That's just a little bit part of this harness. There's still a lot more harness laying around. And these are computer connectors. So if you're good and you know how to mess with computers, there you go. You can set up a little wiring harness to do that, which we have done with other computers, which I can actually do with Lumina. Like that Lumina, I could program that computer. These connectors I haven't messed with yet, and my father and I do it, but we haven't messed with those as of yet. We might cut those off and maybe we will mess with them, but this is a pretty specific computer. I'm not sure I'm ever going to have another one of those in the future, but I will get these off of there. Took the throttle body, mass airflow sensor, throttle position, just in case stuff that might break in the future on Derby cars or might be already broken, even on daily drivers. If I decide to ever drive one of these are getting quite old now, unfortunately, and so you don't see too many of them on the road still. So just unfortunate, but it is what it is. I'm going to keep the transmission and the engine in there. Obviously they're higher mileage. The engine actually looks very healthy in the inside. I'm not sure if the transmission's doing so good after what I did to it in the Derby, but But I took the valve cover off just for giggles, and it looked very good under there. It's a little bit too bad, but this is 3800, so it's pretty unkillable. I didn't really abuse it at all in the Derby, so I'm not surprised that it's in pretty decent shape still. Got to still tear all this out. I think I'm going to try to get as much as I can. Got the door plate off, got the cage out, and all with the plasma cutter. And guys, if you don't have a plasma cutter, you're missing out. You really are. You need to get one, because if you can afford one of these puppies. And in the long run, it's actually probably going to save you money to have one of these plasma cutters. One, it's going to save you time, and time is money, of course. And also, two, I mean, it's just insanely good. I mean, do you think you could have done this in 5 minutes with a Sawzall or anything else, or a grinding disc? I don't think so. I think you would have had a problem, because I also had to get in here to cut stuff, or cut this, and just a whole bunch of different stuff I had to cut with this thing. Like these cuts through here, took me no time with the plasma cutter. Didn't use a Sawzall or anything like that, grinding disc. And when you use grinding disc, you're going to go through a few grinding discs when you're doing it, especially notching the frame. I know I went through like 3 once on I think it was the Taurus, just trying to notch that frame, and man, was that not a fun time. But this thing, I think it takes 5 minutes to notch a frame with that plasma cutter. I mean, it is ridiculous how much quicker it is. Cut out this cage, I think it took 15-20 minutes at the most, and that's only because most of the time I couldn't decide what I wanted to do, and when I was cutting with it, I just was not being exactly, I guess, precise with my cuts. If I was very precise with my cuts and doing it nice and slow, then I'm sure it would have come out quicker, because I a little bit rushed it too quick, and I just didn't get through all the metal. And that was not only cutting through these welds here, I also cut these plates off out of the skin there. So now I got to save these plates and the cage itself. So what basically I'm trying to go over here, guys, is just how much money you can save by reusing parts, like chains as well. Keep those chains. They're good to use if you chain your Derby cars shut. Plates like this for your cage, very good to save. Obviously the cage, just different suspension parts, wiring, you know, just the switches, I got to take those out still. But there's a bunch of different stuff you guys can save from these cars, which saves so much money in the long run, especially if you derby that same type of car again. The only thing you really have to spend money on is welding and the car itself. Most of the time, everything else just comes together once you have enough of these parts. When I had that bent strut, I mean, I just went over to my tent and grabbed the other strut I had already laying around for this thing, and that's what makes it so much easier for me to build these Luminas than anything else, because I have so many parts for them in W bodies, period. I just have so many parts for them, and I'm so familiar with them, and that's why I keep buying these W bodies, especially because I find them cheap and stuff like that. But even pretty rusty, they make halfway decent Derby cars. It's just, you know, it's the ease of building which makes these cars important to me. So that's why I keep buying these cars, and why I keep on saving so many parts and stuff like that, especially because as these cars get more and more rare, that's just less parts you're going to have if you ever decide to run one of these cars again. It's like running an Imperial nowadays. I'm sure some of these cars will appear in the ring 20 years from now, like a bubble Lumina, like the one sitting up there. You know, 20 years from now, you might actually still see some Luminas being derbied, just like they're still derbying Imperials and 70s cars. You're still going to see some of these in the ring, and the thing is that these parts are going to get so rare because a lot of people just scrap these cars. It's not like the Imperials. It's not like they were somewhat collectible or anything like that, and people kept parts off of them. and they're so thick that even though they're sitting, they won't rust all the way through. You know, the thing is that with these cars, these cars were made to be pretty disposable, but there were millions of them made, so that's what catches up over time, is that there was just so many made that the parts will last for at least some time, and especially down south. And now I'm just totally randomly rambling about W bodies, but I could go on about these W bodies all day, and anybody who knows me knows that, and about talking about Derby. But it's so important to save parts from cars, whether you run Camrys, anything else, and especially the reusable stuff like chains, cage, and stuff like that. So very important, and I just wanted to try to express that to you, or all of you guys. You know, it is very important to save parts. And so I'll get you guys another video on this thing once it's all filled with scrap and going to the scrap yard. That's probably going to be the last video on this thing after this one. Just want this thing out of here so we can get something fresher in here. Hopefully not a W body, but you know, if I find one cheap, you know, I can't help myself. But hopefully we'll be able to get at least 2 in next year. I'm not exactly sure how next year's going to go, because we do plan to build a garage, so that's going to be a heck of a time. I'm going to be lucky. I think I can say I can try to get 2 next year. I'm probably going to be lucky to do 1, just like I was this year. So anyway, guys, like, comment, subscribe, and I got to quit rambling, else I'll turn this video into a 30-minute video. Ended up spending all day on these videos. So alrighty, guys, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye, everybody.